Hi guys, it's Matt from ESU, and we have a new sound file for you guys today. For anyone who may have ordered and received the SpongeBob Cab SD40-3 and the CSX SD40s that Scale Trains produced, we have a new sound file to upgrade these sounds to be a little bit more accurate than how they came from the factory. They weren't really wrong from the factory, but there's some features that these engines had that we wanted to be a little bit more specific with. So we've worked with one of our contractors, Anthony Wood, and he's provided some sounds for us that are better represent how these engines were rebuilt and the standards that came along with that. Some of those features include new solenoid activated K5s. We have new air start in them. We have smart start built in and a couple of cycles for that to give you guys some options to run them the way that you feel comfortable with. And an upgraded 645 E3B prime mover and electronics to make it run the way that these engines did after they were rebuilt. So we want to be able to put that out there to upgrade these engines because, again, they weren't necessarily wrong out of the box, but there's just some things that were very specific, and because it's an ESU decoder and are loadable through the local programmer, we can upgrade those sounds at really no cost at all. So it's just a matter of loading this onto the local programmer, downloading the sound from the website. The sound file number is 95454, and that'll be on the OEM section of the ESU download page. Just type in SD40-3 and it'll come right up. At the moment it's the top one in the list, but as we come out with more it might move down a little bit. So again, 95454. So let's take a listen and hear some of the differences in what we've got going on. The initial sounds that you're hearing, the beeping, are the priming sound or the warning that the engine's about to start. This is a random sound and you'll hear it go 2 to 5 times through the startup. You may have noticed that the prime mover revved up a little bit higher than idle right after startup. This is due to the fact that this is an air start prime mover, so the air was needed to be pumped back up again after the start happened. So you also heard through that the compressor also kicked in, so once that was done through its cycle, the prime mover came back down again. Of course, as it's a newer ESU decoder and a new ESU sound file, this has full throttle features. So as we're sitting here, I can press my F9, which is my drive hold button, and rev the throttle up as I'd like to be able to hear the different notches. You're also hearing new air dryer sounds, as this is something, once again, that's been added to the SD40-3 engines when they were rebuilt. Now if you notice as I rev up and down, one of the other differences between ESU decoders is that we have multiple sound paths based on how we move the throttle. So if we quickly accelerate, we can skip going through each loop of each notch, and it'll go straight to the notch that we stopped the throttle on. Same with coming back down. So that kind of eliminates the need to be able to come to a stop and wait for the prime mover to drag back down. Now this will be dependent a little bit upon the prime mover that we're working with, as some prime movers just simply load slower or faster than others. So an SD40-2 with a 16-cylinder 645 does take a little bit longer to go up and down through the notches as, say, a SW9 with a 12-cylinder 567. One of the things I did not mention so far is that when the SD40-3s were rebuilt, they were built with a new e-bell. So we've added that to this file as well. And you're going to hear the engine go through its shutdown cycle now. Remember, this is an engine that was built with Smart Start, so we have 3 different cycles of the Smart Start, and this was a 3-minute cycle. So after it's been sitting for a little bit while, the prime mover will shut down. It'll stay off for 3 minutes or until I move the throttle. Now, in order to be able to hear the other sounds, it was actually good timing. So let's hear that e-bell. As an e-bell is nothing more than a speaker, one of the things that you'll notice is when I turn the e-bell off, no matter where it is through its cycle, it will stop. Rather than like an air bell, which is going to resonate until the vibration stops. So a little bit different. The other thing that I'd like to show you is the new K5 horns that are solenoid activated. So the difference being that on a solenoid activated horn, it goes to full blast as soon as you press the button. Whereas a non-solenoid activated horn would have a handle and you could adjust the amount of air that was going to them. The FRA has deemed that in many cases these days they want everything to be solenoid, because if you don't have enough air going through them, they actually can make it so that you don't quite meet the standards of the loudness of the horns. As you notice, the horn is very playable, but with just a simple press of the button, I can make it quite short. Or leave it in for as long as we'd like. So if we do not want to wait for the Smart Start, as we've mentioned before, we can actually just bump the throttle up just a little bit. There are multiple cycles on the Smart Start. One is that it doesn't go through the Smart Start sequence at all. One is a 3-minute cycle with CV48 to 16. CV48 to 32 takes it to a 6-minute cycle, and CV48 to the value of 48 takes it to a cycle where it turns itself off and then will only turn back on if you move the throttle. So I've actually not pressed any buttons. This 3-minute cycle has expired, so it's starting up on its own. As you heard, the unique air start. And once again, it'll rev itself back up so that it can replenish the air. And just like any other file, pressing F8 will shut down the prime mover. And once we do, one of the other features that these engines had, they've added an electric handbrake. So when we hit the F8 button, the electric handbrake will also engage. Now that we've heard some of the specifics about how the sound file worked in the SD40-3s, we've taken this file, we've altered it again just a little bit, and we've taken out the air start and we've added some different horns to it. We're going to turn this into a select file, and that way we can put it out there as a retail file for selects and V4s that might be going into other engines, maybe not the scale trains, but maybe the Bowser or the Intermountain or some of the other SD40-2s that are out there with Smart Start. So many of the engines that are out there didn't have air start, so we took that out of it. The Smart Start worked about the same though. So we've left those settings in, we've left some of the horns in, and added a few others. So those files are brand new. We're still working out what sound file numbers they're going to be, so we'll know next week once we release that file to the public. But remember, on the scale train side, that has to be a V4.0 because those engines have up to 12 function outputs and they have a power pack. So that 4.0 has to be used in order to talk to those features through the motherboard. So let's take a listen to what we're doing with the CP SD40-2 here. This is one that was built by Kenny Carden, a very good personal friend of mine and just a fantastic modeler. So Kenny's added a number of different outputs on here. So as you'll see when we start it up, it's got running board lights, it's got ground lights, and one of the neat things that we've built into this file, even though it's not used on the CSX SpongeBob cab, is a beacon to show that the Smart Start is about ready to engage the prime mover and start it up. So in this engine, you'll notice that this beacon, which is about right here behind the dynamic brakes, that beacon will start to flash as soon as the priming starts to happen with the updated prime mover with Smart Start. So let's take a listen to that and see the difference. The other version of the file that we've built that will be going out to the retail public very soon is the Select and the V4.0 version without the air start. So we've taken the air start out. We may actually put in a file to give it as an option, either with a CV change, or maybe you want to press a button or something like that to have the option if you're going to put it into something else that was built with an air start. But the file as it stands right now, as we're building it here, this is a beta file, so it might be slightly different till we release it. But one of the neat things about these locomotives is often they were used in the yards, and they had a beacon added to them. So those beacons often would go on only when the Smart Start was kicking in, and again, it was just to warn crews that that engine was getting ready to start up. So let's go ahead and start that up, and you'll hear the difference between the Smart Start, or I'm sorry, the air start and the electric start. This engine's one that was built by Kenny Carden, a very dear friend of mine. Kenny's added lots and lots of lights, one of them being the cab light that you see come on during the startup, and the beacon that's flashing. There's ground lights, there's walkway lights, number boards, the whole 9 yards. And of course, like our other ESU files, this is full throttle equipped. So just like we were starting off a heavy train, I can press F9, begin to rev up the prime mover. And as engineer, I get to be in control over the train rather than letting the decoder choose based on knowledge that it can't possibly know about how the train is loaded, whether the train's empty, whether I've got a big train or a little train. It's only the rough calibration of setting up the load to the back EMF which can be a challenge. So as mentioned before, these files are either out with the SD40-3 file on the OEM side of the download pages on the ESU website, or will be coming in the next week or so. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please contact us directly at support@lokesound.com, or you can comment here on the video. Have a great day.